Okay, in this video we're going to do deconstruction of the new single. This is called Since We Met That Day. This is available now on TrackSource for download for DJs, and it's on streaming. So it's getting amazing reactions. Thanks to everybody for all the kind words, all the DJs supporting. And this is a very kind of US garage sounding track. And it's great timing because of the garage chart that we have now on TrackSource. So thanks again, TrackSource, for putting that together. And it's very much based around this piano riff. So we're going to focus on that soon. Now there's a bit of a story behind this track. I actually created the piano, the string, and the brass stabs way back in 1990, gosh, it must have been 93. So this existed in demo form, and it's actually something that I found on the DAT tape sessions, where I found a whole bunch of amazing stuff that I put together when I was younger. And essentially what I did was I recreated that. So I rebuilt the elements using the modern instruments we have here, and it's amazing because for me this is it's a new dimension really, because I put the 90s tapes out recently, which was fantastic, and it's been really interesting for me as a composer and a producer now, with all of the experience that I've built up over time, to reflect back on these earlier productions. And there was an amazing kind of naivety, but also an amazing energy to those productions. So it's like traveling back in time and seeing my 20-something-year-old self, and bringing things up to date. So this is one track that is very much rooted in the past, an authentic kind of piano riff from that period. Okay, that's why I feel that it's kind of resonating with some people now. So let's take a look at the piano. I'm going to solo this, and it may be no surprise to you. Everyone's kind of saying, oh, it's such a clean piano. This is the Korg M1 piano. So let's take a look. By the way, you just heard a bit of a filter sweep there because there's some automation here, and basically the filter is this one. I'm going to bring it up. It's the Arturia Filter Mini, which I love. It's got a real kind of warm analog sound. And so the piano patch itself that's bringing it up, it is the classic M1 house piano, being filtered on occasion, and it's going to happen again. So I'm just going to show you here. If we drop down the automation, there we go. Obviously there's some EQ going on here. That's to help it sit in the mix. It's also running through what I would class right now as my favorite delay. And this is the Arturia Delay Eternity. I love the sound of this thing. I've used it on everything recently. So love the sound of this. It's a very short delay, very subtle. So that's going on there. Very short feedback. You could hear it when we actually stopped there. The compressor is running here as well. I've got this actually being ducked by the kick to create a bit more of a kind of energy. That's definitely a contemporary thing compared to the 90s. And then it's running through the BX console, the SSL G series, which is really just to gel the mix together in a console way, because I've got that on every single channel. So this is a piano. If you do want to scrutinize the chords, they're here for you. Okay, and that is played in. I played it in way back, even though I didn't know what I was doing, no theory, just by instinct. So you can see this piano is just driving all the way through this track. Okay, so that's the piano. And there are some other musical elements. Let's take a look. I've got two layers for the bass. Okay, so let's take a look. I've got a mid bass and a sub bass. And this was because when I used one of them, it didn't feel like it was enough. Okay, so these are both covering different spaces. The mid bass is here. It's an instrument I use all the time. It's Reactor from Native Instruments, and it's the Future B preset, and it's tweaked very slightly. This is sitting in a particular space because of the notes being played. And, you know, a little bit of EQ here just to give it some of its own space. Let me just compare that. So we've got the mid one here that's compared with the sub bass. Let's take this and hear these on their own, because that was them together, by the way. All right, so look, let's focus on that mid bass. And then the equivalent on the sub. So the lower octave. And this one here has no EQ. It's just flat. Whereas the other one has a bit of a dip to allow them to sit together. Now, the other interesting thing that I'm using here is I'm actually using the track spacer. And this is being used to help that sit with the kick. All right. And this is something I hadn't used in the past, but I've actually started using it. I like it. I think it's good. And that's happening here on both of those. And I didn't group them together, which is surprising, because generally I would take two things and group them together and compress them together. But I didn't. I can't remember the reason why, but it was probably just because I was working at speed. Okay. And then we have, of course, the polysynth. Love the sound of this. Once again, it's that delay eternity that is making a big difference. So that's the Arturia delay plugin. But once again, we have a brass patch from the Korg Triton. This is the MMG brass. I can't remember if I adjusted anything here. Potentially not. So the delay eternity, as I said, I love the sound of this. BX console. Bit of EQ, not using this delay. So that sits, let's just take this back so you can hear that. So let's take a look at some of these elements. And these, like I said, I recreated these from my original demo. This brass is very old and artificial sounding. It's a synth brass, big analog pad. So yeah, it's not described as a brass patch, but the original patch that I used was a brass patch, and it feels like a brass patch to me. So let's bring in the strings. String, Korg Triton. Arco strings, a patch I use a lot. But there is actually another string here. There we go. Arco strings with quite a lot of cut here on the lows. But let's bring those elements in. Let's bring the piano alongside those. One thing I'll tell you about the timing on the piano is it's really swung. So if we take a look at this, you will see that certain positions, so you can see these ones here, here and here, they're very heavily swung, which creates a real nice kind of US kind of groove to it, I think. So yeah, those musical elements, and there are some other effects. A riser here. I'm not going to bother going into those because they're not anything significant. They're just subtle background things. There is a real nice instrument here. Let's just move this over. So leave that piano in the background. And let's solo this. A little bit of an audio glitch there. I think possibly my buffer is set too low for screen recording. But what I wanted was a little bit of musicality on top of what we already have, just to kind of spice things up a bit. And this is the Arturia Mini Moog, the Mini 5 here, which is another instrument that I love. It's sitting within the complete control here because I'm using the S61 keyboard from Native Instruments for playing stuff in. And so that's there. Love the sound of that. And you can see that's occurring at certain points here. Literally, I just ran my fingers up and down the keyboard to make that happen. So it's a nice complementary effect. The vocals, we'll come back to those soon. Let me see if there's anything else that we haven't covered. I don't think so musically. So let's take a look at the vocals. Now, what I'm using here is a chain. I've got here the isotope vocal doubler, which I'm using to create some extra width. So it's almost like double tracking the vocal. And this is a great plugin for that kind of effect. It's really good. But then the other thing that's relatively new for me that I want to talk about is the IK Multimedia Mix Box. And if you're following my blog on my website, you will see that I've been talking about this. There was a recent 25-year anniversary giveaway. And basically, if you bought a qualifying product, you end up getting a whole bunch of products, 25 of them. And my starting point was this mix box. And I really like this. And of course, you've seen me using the Slate Digital Rec, the VMR, and it's great. But I was looking for something that I didn't have to pay a subscription for, should I choose to not go that route. And, this is a great alternative. In some respects, I can say it's better because it includes effects such as reverb and delay and so on that you won't find in the Slate bundle with the virtual mix rack, that is. But this is a chain, which is a preset called Pop Vocal, which has been customized. So this is running with a kind of Neve style EQ, LA2A type compressor. I have no idea what this EQ is supposed to be. There's a de-esser, which is useful, and then a plate reverb here. So that's my vocal chain here, and it really does work. It's great. I have a new adaptation of this that I'm using that has the 1176 in front of the 2A, and I'm using that a lot, and I like that. But didn't do that on this particular track. So yeah, the mix box really useful, and you'll find that on the other vocals as well. I think there is the mix box. So there's a couple of kind of vocal effects here. Now the rest of this is just some arrangement things like wind chimes and noise, some crashes, cymbal stuff here. That's it. And on the master, I'm going to show you a few things here. We've got the G series once again, and this is working to sum everything up. I've got here this tape, which is new. This is from IK Multimedia, and this is the TAC, the 6100. So it's a reel-to-reel tape. I love the sound of tape, and so everything's running through this, and I think it really benefits from that. Couple of other bits and pieces. We've got here this IK Multimedia Pultec copy, which is being used, and that's just to add a bit of brightness. You can see that at 10K. There is also another EQ. So it's the EQ is in this Lursen thing. So I really like this console, right? This is another thing that I got free as part of that deal, the 25 years IK Multimedia deal. And so this is my mastering kind of finalizer, which I'm using more these days. And, I really like the sound of this. So it's running through that at the very end. So this is a track that I'm very fond of, because it does for me feel like a reflection to the past, but it's been brought up to date with some of the more modern sounds. And it's out there now. And once again, wanted to say thank you to everybody for the energy and support, because it's been strong on this one. I'm really glad. So I hope you enjoyed that little deconstruction. And if you have any comments, please put them down below. And if I get time, I will respond. Cheers.